What do you do when things go wrong? When you have got things planned to be a certain way, you have an expectation of life being a certain way, or a specific event that you've organized to be a certain way, and you're thrown a curveball. I'm not just talking about the small things, although that could be part of the conversation as well. But I am talking about the big things. When things go wrong, what do you do? Welcome to this week's episode of Coming to Your Senses. And I think that more than ever, that phrase coming to your senses is hitting home more and more. So last week, I ran my retreat, which I do at least once a year. The time varies, but this year it was in near Sedbergh in Cumbria, and beautiful venue, phenomenal people that run the venue there, St Mark's Days. And we start on the Tuesday, we go right the way through to the Friday, and everything is taken care of. So it's a beautiful venue with stunning views, even if it is pouring of rain, which it was quite often. It still looks beautiful. The rooms are nice and comfortable, and there's log fires in pretty much every room as well. There's plenty of space to go and be on your own or be with the group, and it's just a phenomenal time. And it's one of the things that I absolutely love doing. So I get really excited about going on retreat and talking to the guests that are coming, finding out, because the retreat is created for them. I find out specifically what they are looking for, what they specifically need in order to be able to get the very best from the event. And then I create all of the exercises, or the conversation starters that we have, all come from their desires, their needs, the outcomes that they're looking for. So one of the reasons that I love those kinds of conversations is because people get to hear from other people. And often one of the revelations, not just at the retreat, but on the workshops that I run as well, is that people suddenly start to truly realize it's not just them. Whatever it is that they're experiencing, there'll be a similarity, there'll be a phrase, or there'll be a perception, or there'll just be something that sparks for them a realization of, oh, it's not just me that experiences X because the other person's talking about it. And so these wonderful connections start to evolve as well. But it's not only that for me, it's the opportunity to take what we're talking about into real conversations, and therefore test it for its robustness, and come back into the next conversation with a yeah, but what if it happens on a Wednesday? Or yeah, but what happens if things go wrong? So the reason I'm sharing this, I want to be very transparent, is I'm sharing this because I think that it's important to see the possibilities of what can happen when things go wrong. And um, I want to be honest in this podcast, and share those experiences with you, because I think that I know from myself that I took a great deal, and I'm still reflecting on last week, to see what I can learn from myself. I certainly know that the other people that have been involved are also doing that too. So there's a number of things that I want to share. And I do want to flag up that what I'm about to share isn't apportioning any blame to anybody, because it's absolutely an unexpected curveball of an experience that no one could have foreseen, which was, unfortunately, our chef didn't turn up. So when you come to the retreat, all of the food is done, it's there. You literally walk in for breakfast and it's there. You don't have to wash up, you don't have to clear up, you don't have to prep anything. It's all done, it's all taken care of. And I bring a chef in because, one, I'm not the best of cooks in the world. I'm okay, but I wouldn't say that I'm great, and certainly wouldn't put that on other people for a whole few days anyway. And it takes me a lot of energy to create food, because it's not my strength. And I bring a professional in because not only do they create beautiful, healthy food, but it means that I don't have to think about any of that. We decide on the menu beforehand based on guests' needs and allergies, etc. And then aside from that, it's over to them, their creativity to can run wild. And it's so lovely for the guests to walk out and see these, these healthy snacks or these meals that come out, that they're just, their eyes widen and it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize how simple and accessible and easy it can be. So when all of that disappears because an unexpected situation happened for the chef, which meant that they didn't turn up. Now, for the first nearly 24 hours, I had no communication from her, so I didn't know what was going on. But there was two key things that I noticed that happened. And that's why I asked the question at the beginning of the episode of, when things go wrong, what do you tend to do? Because without realizing, the majority of us will have a default, whether that's panic, whether that's rescuer, whether that's solution mode, whether that's hiding under the duvet, ignoring it, sticking your head in the sand, hoping it will go away. We all have a default mode that we go to. And if we don't challenge that default mode, then obviously as a default mode, it's going to keep running. But if we can see that default mode and just check it as to whether it's valid, whether it's helpful, whether it's useful, whether it's something that is hindering or helping the situation, then we can start to be showing up in a different way. And that is something that I experienced last week. So what shocked me more than anything else, there was two things really. So if I think about my senses, I had some level of knowing that something was off with the chef. I don't mean that as in that she's a bad person. I mean that there was something off. She's not going to be there. I just had this inkling, and I think what I often do is I have that kind of inkling, but I don't often give it the airtime that maybe it needs for me to check in and go, okay, so is there anything that I need to do? Because when someone is unexpectedly ill and they're not able to even email you, then that is, these situations happen. And especially when you work for yourself, then that's a real challenge as to how do you manage that. But what I noticed is that even so, I had that inkling, I had that little bit of a knowing. So there were a couple of things that I did, such as I bought all the tea bags, and then chef said, "Oh no, it's fine. I've got all the tea." So there was a part of me that went, "Well, I might as well leave the tea bags in the office then." And something went, "No, put the tea bags in the box. Take them anyway." And that's a small thing, but actually, it's a big thing when people want refreshments and all of the tea bags that are usually there aren't there. So there was little things like that I listened to, but I didn't think about it. I didn't take the time to connect with that in a bigger sense. So that's a learning for me. When those inklings, when those little nudges, those little knowings happen, is to just slow down and listen to them a little bit more and see if there's any more information that I can glean. I'm not sure that I would have known anything else other than that, but just to be aware. The next thing that I noticed was communication and the power of communication. So when someone's unexpectedly taken ill and they don't have access to their phone or their emails or anything, and so therefore you're not able to get communication from that side, the key then becomes the communication with the other people that are involved. And that was the thing that I found phenomenal, was not only was the communication between myself and the venue owners uh, really clear and honest with each other with where we were at and what could be possible, what could we do, versus not versus, as well as the communication that I had with the guests. Because I think in previous times I possibly would have looked to cover it up a little bit more, rather than, and bearing in mind that all bar one of the guests had never been on the retreat before. Some of them have never even worked with me before, so very new to coming to some of them never even been on a retreat before. So there was lots of newness. And I think there might have been a story behind it of years ago about, I must cover this up, I must stay professional. I must make it look like I'm in charge and I'm okay with everything, rather than genuinely being honest and going, we just don't know what's going on. Obviously, we're not going to starve. But we might be having to alter things for the first 24 hours. We don't know. So, what I found fascinating about that is the very next morning, one of the guests came to me, and she works in the corporate world. And she said, I've been really thinking about your transparency with the situation and how within the workplace, we often don't do that. And therefore, when we don't do that, what that can then create for other people is it can trigger a lot of uncertainty, which then can trigger a whole heap of assumptions and insecurities and all sorts of different things for other people. Now, obviously, we've got no control over what we may or may not trigger in other people. We can only have awareness of that for ourselves, of what's going on within us. But she was saying that what she had valued, and she was one of the people that has never been on retreat with me before. And she was saying how much she valued being kept in the loop, even though I didn't really know what was going on. I still kept them in the loop, as in, okay, so obviously it's now 5 o'clock. Dinner was at 6 o'clock or 6:30, and we have no chef. So here are our options. And she said the thing that she found really refreshing was that there was no drama around it. There was no panic. There was no blame. There was no finger pointing. There was no coulda, woulda, shoulda, either to me or to the chef. It was just clear, honest. Well, this is the situation, and these are our options. And she said it was so nice to not have to be navigating the drama in order to be able to get to a solution. And that was very much something that I was aware of. And it wasn't something that I was consciously doing, but it's definitely something that I have practiced, is becoming aware of where is there an added story? Where is there extra flavor and zest being added to something that's actually surplus to requirements and is making, doesn't matter what the situation is, but is making it more of a challenge to navigate rather than actually dealing with honestly what is. So what is in this moment? And as I'm sharing this, I'm remembering a retreat that I went on years ago with the spiritual teacher Adyashanti. And it was a silent retreat. And I think there was about 200 of us in this, it's kind of like a theatre space on a venue. And we just started the satsang, which is where questions are asked. So there's some communication going on. And this gentleman collapsed in the front row. And the calmness within that room was something I'd never experienced before, because whenever I've worked in environments before when things go wrong, is quite often there has been that drama, there has been the added flavor and the speed and the have to get it sorted and cover it up and don't let anyone know what's going on kind of attitude, even if it's not as overt as that. There's that kind of like smell to it. But what I witnessed with Adja, and it really stuck with me, was the calmness with how he just dealt with what is, which was, this is the situation, this is what's going on. Then he did the next bit, and then the next bit, and then the next bit was, so can you all please leave whilst we wait for the ambulance to arrive, because we did need to call, or an ambulance was needed to be called. And then we were kept in the loop even when the gentleman, had been treated, and then he came back the next day. And even as I'm sharing that now, I'm like, oh, so that's very similar to how I actually dealt with what went wrong last week. Was it didn't need any extra drama. We only had when we deal with the facts, there's no drama required. It's just, this is what is, these are our options, what do we want to do? It's that simple. But when we start adding in ifs, ands, buts, maybes, and assumptions, and even to the point that, when we start making assumptions, that then it's like the thinking starts bolting stuff on and adding more and more and more and more stuff on, that then we're trying to navigate those things, the added extras, rather than literally dealing with what is right in front of us. And just so often we don't do that. We just do not do that for ourselves. The Thinking has created a drama, it's created all of the extra features. And that's what we're looking to navigate when something goes wrong, rather than what is and what can I do in this situation. And it reminds me of the stories that I have heard numerous times of when a big incident has happened and somebody runs to help someone else or lift, the woman who lifts a car off their child, or someone who jumps down on the tracks to pull someone off before the train comes through. And one of the questions that's often asked is, what were you thinking just before? And the answer pretty much is always the same, which is I wasn't thinking. I just dealt with what was in that moment. Now, they may not articulate it specifically in that way, but that's the flavor of what's being said. And I think that that's the outside situation, the thing that's gone wrong, quote unquote, is the same. But if I come with it, I come to deal with it, and I've got a whole load of drama and thinking and assumptions and stuff to navigate, it becomes so much bigger than if I deal with it as it is. And that really gave me the opportunity through that conversation to have a very different experience. So what I noticed was how, by being in that way, it supported the guests. So they weren't stressing about what we were going to be fed. They were absolutely okay with it. They were calm because there was no extra drama. I wasn't adding more into the pot, which gave them the space to just carry on being and enjoying and taking that time to be. And it also meant that then there were other little moments of pockets of kindness, of supporting each other, and kind words that were being said to the venue hosts who jumped in and supported when we found out that the chef was not going to be able to make the retreat through illness. And how that then got so well, the support and the help that both was offered, but also it's very interesting how sometimes we can offer support or we can offer help, but the other person might have barriers up and actually not be receptive to that. And I think that's something we all need to be aware of, especially if you're somebody who's prone towards jumping in to be a rescue or jumping in to offer support, offer that help out. It's great that you have that as a default, but it actually, is it required? Is it needed? Is it wanted? Is the other person, are the other people open to it? And it's one of the things that I know for many, 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 many years that I've had a barrier around. Somebody jumping in to help. I didn't want that help because the interpretation that I had of that was, that means that you're saying that I can't do this myself, which is simply not true. The offer of help is just that. I want to be of service. I want to aid you in this situation. And that was a big shift for me, is being able to see that when we are freer of all that internal dialogue, we can openly receive. It was like this beautiful circle, if I of the thing that went wrong, and what came out of that is the different style of communication, and therefore then bringing the guests in what was going on, which meant that they could then relax. And then there was this wonderful help, support, loving kindness that went round between all of us, from myself, the guests, the venue owners. It just this wonderful, it's really hard to articulate. It's possibly one of the most beautiful experiences I think I've ever had. And who would have thought that when something goes wrong? And all of it has been so simple. So I'm actually recording. I usually record podcasts on a Monday, but it's a Tuesday because there was a lot extra paperwork that I needed to sort out yesterday in relation to this. And just the speed and the ease with which all of that has happened. Again, now obviously there's no guarantee that when things go wrong, if you drop the noise, drop the drama, that it's always going to go with a great deal of ease and you're going to get a great outcome, because we have no guarantees on our outcome. But what I do know is, or what I am experiencing is, the more I drop the noise, then I've got less attachment to the outcome, which means it's much easier to experience the outcome as it shows up. So what I what I'm really taking away from the retreat for myself is that even when things go wrong, or when things don't go to plan, when you're thrown a curveball, whatever the word is that you want to do, is when you deal with what is, rather than assuming or dramatizing or adding more unnecessary color to it, then it becomes much more obvious what it is that you're dealing with. Therefore, you've then got clarity on what can or can't be done, or what's possible, what's not possible, rather than all the noise. And to me, that's a point of then relaxing. And through that, I just experienced so much openness, not only from the people, but then it meant that I shared things in a way, other exercises, other metaphors, other stories, other helpful conversations transpired from that one thing going wrong. And I think so often in our lives, we are attempting to stop things going wrong. But actually, that can be a great point of learning. That can be a great opportunity to take a step back and go, it's okay. It may not be how I would have wanted it to be. And yet, what I'm taking away from the retreat, which has scored a 10 out of 10 again for the 13th year running, is that even when things go wrong, they go right. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. If you're interested in finding out more about the retreat, then in the show notes, there will be a link where you can pre-register for the 2025 dates. So once we have those dates secured, then you will be the first people to know. So make sure you check out that link. And also remember to like, share, and subscribe to Coming to Your Senses podcast, and share this episode with other people who may be having challenges when things go wrong in their lives, and actually that there is a different way of experiencing it, not necessarily a right way, but a different way, which could lead to a different outcome. And I look forward to speaking with you again very soon.